So the backup will be created and stored into your repository as backup files. So if you want to utilize it, you need to perform some restoration. So we will cover restore recovery tomorrow. Okay, so today we'll look into the replication function and also the backup copy and advanced repository. Yeah. So first thing over here, replication. So you will see that Vim software, they call them the backup and replication software, right? Meaning to say the same software here do come with replication function, which is pretty easy to set up. And the license will only charge onto your protected object, similar like your backup. Okay? And I do check from the license itself if you are backing up and also replicating the same VM, for example. They only charge you one license for that. Meaning to say the license that you bought it from Vim is covering backup and replication at the same time. Okay, by only one instance license. So it will be much more cheaper, maybe compared to some other backup software licensing. Okay, so over here, replication is a bit different as compared to backup. Backup, after we retrieve the virtual machine data, we will do some processing to it with dedupe, compress, and then send it to the repository to be stored in that format to save space. But using replication here is a bit different. Replication, we are basically creating one-to-one copies of the virtual machine in native hypervisor format. Meaning to say, I am basically duplicating this same VM to have another copy running in a different set of ESXi usually. So from the DR point of view, this VM is sitting in the ESXi inside one of the data store. You can even manually power on the VM if you want to. It's an exact virtual machine copy. Unlike backup, whereby if you want to utilize it, you need to restore first. This guy is a ready virtual machine in another ESXi that you can run anytime that you want. Okay, that's why the data here on the DR equipment is data without dedupe, compression, and encryption that actually not enabled on the Vim perspective, for example. Right? So for now, Vim replication can only support vSphere to vSphere, Hyper-V to Hyper-V. They still cannot cross-platform here. That's why if you plan to utilize replication, you need to prepare another set of ESXi or Hyper-V ready for you to perform all these things. Pretty easy here. So building the replication capabilities for VMware. VMware, we require the VMware backup proxy, as you can see here. So we can utilize one proxy to perform all the tasks if you're running on-site. All these are running on LAN connectivity. You do not have any network connectivity, bandwidth throttling options enabled, etc. This can be done. And we do require a repository in a replication relationship. Why is that so? Now, this repository is to keep your virtual machine replica metadata. So this is to speed up incremental replication. This is to speed up the incremental replication. So using this particular metadata set, that's why if the backup repository metadata having some issue, your next incremental replication will be slower. That's about it. It does not actually carry any important production data or backup data over there. It's just a supported element here in the replication to speed up the process. So over here, you will see using the repository has something what we call CVT. They don't use the native CVT because running on replication is a bit different here. So the first thing you will see that offsite replication here for VMware, we will require a pairs of backup proxy. This is to facilitate stable connectivity, and if you plan to apply some network traffic rules like network encryption, your particular network throttling, using a pairs of backup proxy like this will be much more ideal. So this is for offsite replication. for VMware. Now, if you are running replication for Hyper-V, is even more direct. Yes, Hyper-V, we are utilizing on-host backup proxy straight away. So the one that is running together in the Hyper-V, they are able to utilize it for the replication. Now, sorry about the diagram, they're having some typo here. It should be Hyper-V to Hyper-V. Yeah? So you will see from the source it's actually ESXi. So this is some problem here to the material. Yeah? Okay. So same thing goes to off-site replication. So it should be Hyper-V to Hyper-V. Yeah? Same thing, the on-host backup proxy can able to get the job done straight away without any issue. Okay? So this is for the replication function in Hyper-V. Now, when we are performing replication, you will see that we are trying to make one-to-one copies of your virtual machine. That's why if we are trying to keep more than one restore point, okay, so the method will be a bit different because we are now utilizing virtual machine to protect another VM. So over here in the DR, it is exactly one runnable VM copy. So in order to keep multiple restore point, I will need to utilize snapshot to perform this option. Now, why do we need multiple restore point? Pretty easy. If your production VM having some issue, it might also replicate the same problem to the latest restore point sometimes. So when we later perform a recovery using the virtual machine replica, and when we boot up the VM using the latest restore point, you will see that your virtual machine may be having the same weird issue. Okay? So you cannot utilize the latest restore point to continue to serve your application. Then maybe it's a good idea we choose another restore point to try to restore our services. That's why utilizing multiple restore point here is just to have additional insurance as what we have for backup. In case one point having issue, I can still utilize another restore point to restore my service. Okay. So from here you will see VMware, the maximum supported snapshot is higher than 28. But Veeam will only utilize 28 to give some buffer for manual snapshot creation testing or even for snapshot created by Veeam for certain tasks or feature. Okay, pretty easy. Same thing goes to Hyper-V. So Hyper-V, maximum support I think should be 50 or 50 plus. We can go up to 47 checkpoints. Okay, so this is for Hyper-V environment. Same thing, we're utilizing the snapshot to create multiple restore points to protect our data. Okay, so those are for the introduction, okay, for replication. Any questions so far before I move on further? Things should be clear, right? Any question they want to ask? Let me check the status here. Everybody's still here. Okay, make sure. Okay, so for replication, another huge problem usually will be how are we going to actually copy the entire set of data to have a duplication on another equipment, and usually via slower link. For example, here, this environment we are running on maybe a 100 Mbps WAN link, for example. Okay, and over here in the production environment, I have like 100 TB virtual machine data in total. Now, if you utilize the 100 meg link to copy 100 terabytes of data, it will require very, very long periods of time, and you will congest the entire link for all this data transfer. And sometimes due to slow performance, timeout, etc., the replication usually will fail. That's why it's not a good idea to actually send all this data directly from WAN link sometimes. And we also have some infrastructure which is having slower performance link. So over here, what is the other options that we can choose? In Veeam, we have what we call the replica seeding option. Replica seeding here can help you to solve how are we going to actually duplicate this set of data into another equipment. So first, we can utilize Veeam backup component. Now, if I plan to have additional backup copy. Then I can utilize this replica seeding. So after I back up the data, you will see that my virtual machine comes with the VBK file. Now this VBK file, maybe after your data reduction, they can go up to like half of the size, for example. Okay. Now from here, I will perform the backup copy job. Okay, that we will cover later. Now this backup copy can be done via one link. Now you need to send only half of the data, or maybe this guy is a 2U or 4U server, for example. Now I can always bring this 2U or 4U server into the production environment to perform a local backup copy using 10G connectivity, which is faster, for example. Okay, then here after we settle on the backup copy, I have this data sitting in the repository now. And I can continue to keep additional backup copy using the same data set and the same job. So from here, I can able to utilize this backup data to seed full size VM data. So this is the first step. They are utilizing the backup file available, okay, running here on the local area network transfer to create my 100 terabyte virtual machine data first. This is first step. Okay, so after I have this data created, this will help me to solve the problem that I have earlier. How can I actually create or duplicate this 100 terabyte data here? Okay. So utilizing this kind of movement, it will be much more easier. And then second thing, I will be utilizing incremental replication from source. So I will utilize the virtual machine in your source production and also your target DR to compare, to filter out the change data, and then I will perform the incremental replication using the change data. So you will see subsequent incremental replication. They will be utilizing your source production VM to perform these replication options. Okay, so this is utilizing Vim component and Vim backup data to solve your initial full-size data transfer problem. Any questions so far for this replica seeding function? Without this, last time we actually need to move the storage from the DR to production first to perform local transfer before I move the storage to the DR side. So with this option, now we can have more flexibility because utilizing 2U, 4U server is much more mobile, easier for us to move. Because in some environment, the ESXi cluster and the storage cluster is too huge to move around. Okay? It's not safe basically. Too many equipment. You might need to have a lorry to do that, things like this. So for a 2U, 4U, you can even move it with your own private vehicle, for example. Okay? So this is one of the options called replica seeding. Now, what if I have some suspended replication job, or maybe the replication job is deleted, and your virtual machine is still available in the DR equipment. Now, if I want to initiate incremental replication again, you will see that both sides already have the full-size data available. For example, this 100 TB VM, and this is the 100 TB VM already there. Okay. Now, this replica mapping can be done to resume your earlier replication connectivity, or maybe earlier you're utilizing another replication method or software to do this. Now, I want to continue to use the original data that's sitting in the DR side to perform and convert it into VM replication. You can try to select the source and the target VM over here just to tell Vim, okay, these two VM is considered the same virtual machine data. Most of the data is actually identical. Help me to compare. and perform the incremental replication. So now Vim can utilize the already data sitting in here DR to compare. Okay. So first I will compare VM data. They require more time. Okay. Then second, I will only replicate incremental changes. So by doing so, I can even do it using a slower link because they don't require to do actual data transfer. They just require to compare the metadata, etc., to filter out the change data before I will replicate it to the target DR host. Okay. So this option is good if you are converting something or trying to reestablish the replication job, or maybe you actually bring the ESXi machine to production and do local transfer before you move into the DR side. Then you can utilize this option to reestablish the replication job. Okay, so over here you will see replica mapping and replica seeding. The full size data is already sitting in your DR equipment, based on either utilizing Vim backup file to do that, or you already have the data written in the DR side. I will be using the source to actually replicate the incremental changes. Okay. So this is using replica seeding or replica mapping. Now, over here we have another option also, whereby if the link is too slow, okay, for example, I have here is my DR site. And then I have my production site here, come with my maybe ESXi, etc., my repository. So the DR site and the production site here may be connected with a WAN length of 20 megabit per second. Now, using 20 megabit, it will be too slow for most of the job, and you might have some time constraint to utilize the WAN link just for backup, for example, maybe at night. So during the night, you can utilize this link to transfer data. Now, in your environment, the customer required to have both protection going on. One is using your backup copy job, for example, here. Okay. Then another one will be a replication. Just a moment, let me see is that a question. Yes, sure thing. That is a must. Okay, that's why we already covered earlier. Vim proxy need to be, okay, we need to deploy Vim proxy in DR no matter which option you choose. Same thing, because your replication will require the backup proxy to write it there. Alright. So over here you will see running on this remote replica from backup. Okay, so we have backup copy requirement and also replication requirement. So what happens here is when I have a slower link to run, what can we do? If you choose replication, then you will lose out on backup copy. Now, if I have backup copy job ongoing, okay, from Vim, I do set up a backup copy. Now, using 20 meg link, I can only choose one task, for example. Now, to do backup copy job, it will be sufficient. And it is just nice to complete your backup copy job. That's about it. Then over here, utilizing the backup copy job, I can perform the second task here, okay, to actually create my replica. So this is what we call remote replica from backup, whereby my full size will be from the backup data. My incremental will also be created from the backup copy data that I have. So by doing so, you will see that remote replica from backup, I do not need to retrieve virtual machine data from the source directly, even for incremental replication. So this option will able to help you to perform 2 tasks using one particular slower link. The disadvantage here will be the point-in-time data dependency. Now, if I would like to perform this task, first thing, what is the dependency? Your virtual machine replica will depend on the backup copy. If the backup copy fails, then your data will not able to be created. And your backup copy after they completed, okay, you will have some delay before you have your replica ready. So you will see that when you perform a backup at 10 p.m. at night, maybe until 12 a.m. in the midnight, only you get your backup copy job. After a backup copy just been done, maybe it's already 4 a.m. in the morning, only I will create my particular replica data. So you will see the delay is getting longer and longer. But still, you will get something similar to meet your requirement with replication, etc. But your point-in-time data will basically delay by few hours to maybe half a day or 1 day even. Okay? So remember, this will be the main disadvantage utilizing remote replica because they are not getting data directly from source. So your protection for your RPO point in time will be delayed. Okay? So this is remote replica from backup. Any question again regarding all these options they want to ask? Okay, so inside your replication job, we can predefine the network remapping option. Okay, so this is required usually because your production data center and your DR data center, the network configuration, network design is different. Different VLAN, so-called. So in your DR equipment, maybe your vSwitch, your port group is different name. It is not one-to-one identical one. So what happens is when I replicate my VM, the virtual machine will still be holding source network attributes in the virtual NIC card. Now, if you boot up the VM straight away, you will see that the virtual NIC card attributes is not valid anymore because in the DR side, they have different configuration. So network remapping here is to change your virtual machine VNIC to the correct port group first. You can predefine the mapping here in the replication job. So when we do failover, Veeam will help you to change the network attributes to the correct one so that you know your virtual machine will be connecting to the correct network VLAN at least in the DR data center. Okay, so this is the first thing you need to do on your virtual machine network attributes. So you don't need to manually do that because Veeam will help you to change it. After you have your virtual machine connected to the correct network, another thing will be IP address. If you are replicating virtual machine running on a Microsoft Windows operating system, so you will see this RIP is a Windows only feature. I can actually change the IP that you have earlier in your original VM to the new IP here to match your DR data center. So if you're using Linux machine, maybe you need to change it manually from the console or maybe via some script, etc. For Windows, you can predefine here in the replication job, similar case, next from the network remapping to predefine it. So when you fail over, Veeam will help you to also change the IP address. So remember, during the exam, they also ask about all these things in the question. Yes, so you need to remember the replication RIP is only supported for Windows-based machine here. Okay, pretty easy. Any questions so far for replication? Okay, so if there's no question, then you can move on to the replication lab here for 40 minutes. So you can do your lab here to test the feature, to see what we discussed during the theory part.